Thank you for joining the October 8th, 2019 Volta call. Just a reminder to everyone that these meetings are public and recorded, and we do post them to our YouTube channel after the meeting. So please keep that in mind during any discussions and presentations. With that, we'll go ahead and get started with today's call. And I did see, Scott, that you added another JIRA just before our meeting started today. I took a look through the new JIRAs before the call started, and at this point I believe all of them are associated with brigades. So let me switch over to the tab for a moment, and 2033 is the most recent one, and this one has a stabilization label, so will be covered during that brigade discussion. So I believe all of the new issues that have come in since our previous discussion are related with specific brigades. So if there's a specific item anyone in the group would like to address related to those, if you could bring it to my attention, we can do that. Otherwise, we'll leave those topics for the brigades. Okay, then I think those are brigade related, so they'll be covered during those meetings. And the next item, I don't know if we have a MIT on the bridge yet. We may have to circle back to this one later. So we have on the agenda for a new format for these meetings, the brigade updates, but we also have some scope items that are outside of specific brigade efforts. And so we need to start incorporating status updates for those scope items into the meetings as well. So I was going to attempt to get an update on one of those this week, and then we'll look for others that need to be added to the list for regular updates, and then have a technical lead for those who would be giving the updates on the Volta calls. So let me just check. Yeah, I don't see a MIT on the bridge, but let me go over to 1373, and there may be someone else who can give an update on this. So let me go ahead and go to the top of the board. So what we have here is, this is the implementation of the containerized OpenOLT Golang-based adapter, which includes porting over the functionality from the Python-based version to the Golang-based version. And so a large number of these items are complete. There are a few remaining tasks. So really just want to get an update on the progress on the remaining items, and if we have an estimate for when we think this item will be complete. So I'm not sure if we have anyone on the bridge who can talk to it, but again, most of these items I think are in the resolved state, and I think everything is assigned. Oops, no, we have one unassigned still, 1627. But I believe the others are all assigned for this.
Yeah, the question here really is about defining complete. In some cases, like the ones that are left might be reboot related, the functionality may be there as migrated from 1.7, but just may not work in the new model of 2.x. And do some of these stories just need to become bugs? Some of our bug and stabilization efforts are kind of balled up in whether we know if the migration of something is done or not, and then to declare it, okay, it works or it still needs bug fixes. So really answering that, we'll kind of know whether or not this migration effort is done. Most of them here look to be about reboot. There was one about transparent flows, and I wasn't sure if that was in 1.7 or not. And does that need to be moved out of here into the transparent flows epic? Those are really kind of the open questions, if anybody has any further comments on them.
I think probably moving that one item over would make sense. I don't think this is a port. Oh, no, this is a port from the Python functionality.
Right, that's what I'm saying is, was it fully completed in 1.7, or was as much as it was done in 1.7, is it now done in the Go adapter? There's this kind of gray area of migrating versus enhancing, which makes these migration stories kind of tricky. And honestly, the sooner we can say the migration is done and now it's either a new feature or a bug, easier this gets.
Okay, I'm not hearing any other comments at the moment. So let me circle back after the call, see if I can get some more feedback. And I think this one would be a candidate since we didn't have that transparent floor epic at the time this was created. This could be a candidate to move over though there if this is kind of just remaining work that we could wrap up. I also have some questions on the unit testing item here. So there are a number of them that show as in progress, and then if you look in the comments, it looks like you can see the related merges, and then there's a comment that the changes for unit tests got merged in. So I'm not sure if those are items I can move all of the ones with a similar comment to done at this point, but I think we have a number of these that are actually complete for the unit tests. So we'll see if we can get that cleaned up. And I think those are moving along rather well. Okay, so the next item, then if I go back to the agenda, would be brigade updates. So probably start with Scott. I think I saw you on the bridge.
Yeah, I'm here.
Do you want me to go over to the dashboard view?
Yeah, if you could bring up my dashboard, that'd be great.
Okay.
So not a whole lot has changed since last week. We're primarily working still on the things we were working on then, which are with the redfish importer. We're working on testing and sort of finishing that up with integration work. We've talked about adding an API to configure the importer as well as a command line tool to exercise that API. We're kind of discussing the design elements around that right now. Dinesh is going to be doing that work. We're still working on the on-demand API for fetching statistics, and we're still working on the Kafka topic exporter. I believe we have verified that PSME does support all of the metrics we were interested in, so it's just a matter of getting that whole end-to-end path through there. There is some new work that did show up in the brigade. I think another epic got pulled in. So, for example, we do have some stuff in the dashboard about readiness probes that are being worked on. I don't know if I see those here on the list, but I saw them. I saw them somewhere down here.
I see some.
Yeah, there they are.
Probes.
They're
okay.
Yeah, so those are new stories that the brigade has taken on, and then we still also have a lot of event-related stories and alarm-related stories that need work. I do see that the surge team has assigned some additional people to the brigade, so I will be reaching out to everyone who's currently on our list of surge members to make sure that people are either involved in the meetings, which are Monday at 8 a.m. Pacific time, or if everyone cannot attend the meetings, at least make sure that we have electronic communication online between every member of the brigade. We may look into creating a Google group to facilitate communication. That's it for our status. Any questions?
Was there a story for, I know we talked about this in the past, was there a story for taking the proto-encoded Kafka entries and converting them into human readable form for purposes of like troubleshooting or just following along IPC between the adapters?
Yeah, there is a story. It's assigned to me to document a tool chain for being able to view those messages. Let me see if I can actually, I was just looking at that this morning, but I don't know if I know the
Okay, but you haven't done any work with it or anything?
Well, what I did, and David and I, we kind of walked this back and forth between the two of us. Yeah, I'm not sure if this story's in the brigade. It may be stabilization, Julie.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we found a way with some existing tools using Kafka Cat and something else to view some of the messages, but not all of the messages. So basically, where we ran into the issue was that in the inner adapter bus between the cores and the adapters, there's sort of a nesting going on where protos are encoded inside of protos, and the existing tooling we had would not dive into that nest, and you'd still get kind of a blob output.
Okay.
So yeah,
well, I mean, the reason I ask mostly is there's somebody here kind of in the Foundry who's looking to kind of introduce themselves into SIBA Volta, and I thought that one would be a good one to kind of get involved without committing too much. So if you haven't done anything more than that, that's great. I was going to have him start looking at that. That's really
that'd be perfect. Yeah, I will find that story and send it to you. And it does have the notes from what David and I were looking at before that describe kind of some of the stuff we've done. I just I've sort of lost my handle on where that story is, but it's somewhere.
Okay, cool. We'll find it. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions for Scott before we move to the next brigade update? Okay. Then next, I think we've got multicast and multiple TCONT support update. Let me go over to that dashboard. Let me scroll up so I can access it. And Saurav, Girish, I see you as well, I think. Who would like to give the update for this week?
I was not able to attend the brigade yesterday. Oh, Saurav, go ahead.
Yeah, please. I can do it. So basically on Friday, Girish and I went through all the stories in the multicast brigade, closed out a few that were duplicates. We also looked at the Get It patches that are in review, and some of them were related to Volta 1.7 and BAL 2.6. So we closed out those stories. We basically abandoned those patches. And we also gone through the design document, and we're in the process of getting the design document up in the folder. And at the same time, SN and Gamze are working on Volta and ONOS to bring out these features. So we have a few stories that are in progress. So I think more patches will come in this week, and the existing patches, we need to get them merged. So we're in the process, but that's all really I can say right now.
Okay, thanks. Any questions for this brigade effort? Okay, next we'll go on to the BAL 3.1 upgrade brigade effort and pull up that dashboard. And Girish, I think you were going to do the update for this?
Yes. So last week we focused on getting up BAL 3.x integrated OpenOLT agent with SEBA 2.0 automation suite, just to see we haven't broken anything. We did see an issue where authentication was not working sometimes, but that had nothing to do with BAL 3.x integrated agent. So basically, the EA pool identity request from ONOS from OF agent to Volta were not transmitted. So the OF agent used to send that, but Volta never received it. There seemed to be an issue on the gRPC end and not really anything to do with BAL 3.x integration. So apart from that, we don't really see any major issues. So that's a good thing. And apart from that, we are also trying to get BAL 3.x integrated code working with the latest Volta 2.x. We did see a couple of issues with respect to indications. So the way the BAL 3.x sends certain OLT indications are not acceptable by Volta 2.6 OpenOLT adapter. So we needed to do some bug fixes on the OpenOLT adapter, and they're out for review. So apart from that, we didn't really do anything else. So we would like to push all the BAL3.x code is under development on a separate branch. So we would like to move to master as soon as possible, so that the multicast and multi-tcont work should be unblocked. So they are also going to update the agent code. So we would like to unblock them as soon as possible. So we would like to move to master ASAP. So that's all the updates I have. Any questions?
So given that at this point really changes to agent master, there really haven't been any. We probably could, tag and branch what is the tip of master right now. And given that some testing work has been done and it seems to have been going pretty well, and maybe this is a question for Zach as well too, could we go ahead and just start overlaying that branch on master? Given that's where all the work is now, in BAL3X, that's where all the work is being done anyway. Is there any reason to not?
I think, yes, I think it's a good time to branch out, because we should be, apart from BAL3.x and multi-tcont and multicast, I don't think anyone else is working on agent code. So I think it's a good time to branch.
Hey, hi. I have one question with respect to the changes which you mentioned, that there are some couple of OpenOLT adapter changes required in order to port the BAL3.1 OLT indication. So if we change anything in the OpenOLT adapter, is it not something which we are bound to Broadcom the OpenOLT rather than make it generic? Because see, it was working with the 2.x, and now we are moving to 3.1, and any changes to adapter causes bound to the Broadcom implementation.
No, the changes are done in a generic way, so that it's not tight coupled to Broadcom implementation. Just to summarize, say for example, one of the issue we saw was in BAL3.x, the OLT indication. Sorry, in BAL2.6, the OLT indication was sent once per OLT, but in BAL3.x, the OLT indication is sent one indication per Mac device. So on ASF OLT 16, you would see 8 indications. So the bug fix was just to ignore duplicate indications, because we are just looking for one OLT indication per OLT device. So ignoring duplicates, I think is a generic bug fix. So similarly, we have fixed another issue too, and they're all very generic fixes and not tight coupled to Broadcom implementation.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I think we digressed a bit. So there was a question if it's a good time to branch master. I think it's a good idea to branch out. So did Zach or anyone else want to comment on this?
By branch out, do you mean reintegrate the 3.x patches onto master and then continue on that, or I'm trying to clarify exactly what the mechanics of this would be.
Oh, well, what I understood from Matt's comment was just like how you branched out for Volta 2.1. I believe Matt wanted to branch them OpenOLT agents master for stabilization.
Okay, so will that include the 3.x, the BAL 3.x, or is this a before doing that?
It's a pre-BAL 3.x, so that's what I understood. Matt, you can comment if I understood something wrong.
No, I don't think it makes sense to branch out. I mean, I think Matt's interest is in BAL 3.x, but he may not be aware that we were not doing it in master. We were doing it in a BAL 3.x branch in itself, right? So the branch is already there with 3.x.
No, before we rebase BAL 3.x to master and push all these changes to master, does the tip of OpenOLT agents master need to branch out for stabilization? So I think that's the question.
I mean, some of it is really just, before making a big change to master, it might be a good idea just to go ahead and tag what we have there. Whether or not anybody actually uses that tag or not, is a different question, but just tag before we start piling on the 300 or so patches from the other branch.
Yeah, that seems fine. Yeah, that seems fine. So let's just make a version tag on that, and then if we need to start a branch from that point, we'll have a good point to do from.
And have we run the end-to-end sanity test on the code that's in the branch, or we want to run that on the patch?
That's what we're doing right now, David.
Okay.
That's what we're doing right now, David. We're running the sanity test.
Part of the reason I bring it up in this way also is I don't think anything else is going on in OpenOLT agent master anyway. So in effect, this branch really is what master should be.
Yeah.
Yes, I misunderstood you, Matt. You're right. But it's maybe worth it, like you said, to tag it, version it, and then bring in the changes.
Yes. So once we tag, then probably that can be branched for stabilization if needed, but tagging is a must.
Okay, Girish, can you create that tag or create a patch that increments the version, and then that will create the tag in Git, and then we can start doing those merges.
I don't know if agent does Simver.
Yeah, it doesn't have a Simver.
Okay, I'll take on looking at that and normalizing that with the rest of the release process, and getting it so that it uses the Semver versions, and then we can. Yeah, okay. So let's work together on that, Girish. I'll handle the build side, and we can figure out how it gets its version in other ways, like everything else is reading from the version file.
Sure. Any other questions?
Okay,
Okay, that's it from my side.
Thank you, Girish. We'll go ahead and move to the next brigade update. That would be David for the stabilization brigade.
All right. We met this morning, just like we meet every Tuesday morning at 7 a.m., so please join us. We have about 108 open issues that need to be addressed. We are working on verifying the prioritization of each of these issues and asking members to make sure as they take on new issues to use those priorities to pick which issue they take. We have several, you see here on the left side, which are the needs attention that need some verification, particularly around BBSIM 2. So some of that verification is ongoing. We do have several issues also that are maybe marked in progress that have actually been closed, and we do need some cleanup on that. Just as people commit changes and get them merged, we need the JIRAs closed as well. Other than that, we have a continual problem with getting commits or patch sets reviewed in a timely manner, which is we've got to figure out a way to deal with, particularly some of the trivial patch sets that we've seen over the past week for version changes. Figure out how we can streamline some of that, whether that's through automation as opposed to go through the normal patch set request or not. But in general, making sure that people take time to review patch sets is an issue. Other than that, things are pretty much going okay. Just lots of work to do in this area. There you go.
Thanks, David. Any questions for David or for the stabilization brigade? Okay, then I think we can move on to the next one, which is the ONOS FCAPS brigade. And so that would be Sarah to give the update. Let me check if Sarah is on. Oops, I think Sarah may have dropped. Do we have anyone else who can provide an update here? Okay, so we'll circle back to that if Sarah rejoins the bridge. So let me move on to the next one. BB Sim, do we have Mateo on the bridge? I don't see Mateo, but it looks like Sarah is rejoining. He must have had audio problems.
Hey, Julie. Sorry, I was muted.
Ah, you are there. You're on the room. Okay. So let me go over to the BB Sim Brigade dashboard.
Yeah, so quick summary. We're making progress. The main things we are working on are to prove the BBC scalability, building a reflector for it. That is a tool that basically shares 90% of the code with BBC itself and can just emulate the OMCI and packet out messages that occur with Volta. And the other thing we are working on is to achieve API parity with the version of BBC, which will be done with this item in around 10 days. But at this point, BBC is stable and can be used for a test. A new Helm chart has been released so that if you install from the ONF Helm chart, you are getting the new version of BBC, and there is a patching slide to add that into file folder. And that's it.
Okay. Any questions from the group? Okay, and Sarah, did you rejoin the audio bridge?
Yes, I'm back.
Great, okay. So we'll go to the ONOS FCAPS Brigade dashboard for an update.
Right, so so the big issue in ONOS FCAPS is that, you know, the open issues are all related to IGMP and multicast. And so that functionality is still coming into Volta and ONOS, as I said before. So this brigade, to make progress, will be thought that, okay, you know, that functionality is coming into Volta and multicast, sorry, Volta and ONOS, but we need BBSIM to be able to support IGMP as well. So the couple of the brigade members are now looking at adding IGMP support to BBSIM. So that will help with the functionality, you know, doing the FCAPS functionality, as well as help with scalability measurements down the road when we have, you know, 500 ONUs sending IGMP packets and so on. So, so the ONOS FCAPS brigade is sort of temporarily suspended while we work actually to add IGMP support in BBSIM, probably as part of the BBSIM brigade. And once we have that, then we'll come back and work on the FCAPS.
Sarah, any questions from the group? Okay, then next we've got test automation. Suchitra, I'll go bring up that testing brigade dashboard. If you have an update today?
Yes, quick update. So our test automation brigade got kick-started last Thursday, and in the first call we just went over and discussed briefly on the test strategies and what are the things that we are going to achieve as part of the test brigade. and we discussed about some dashboards and then how people can get started by taking some of these tasks, and how they can start with automation, and what are the documentation available, how to get things started with test automation itself. Every Thursday at 8:30 a.m. PST, we have this call, so please join us. And I also want to give a quick update on the things that we have been doing at ONF before the test automation brigade had started. So if you don't mind, Julie, can you give me permissions to present my screen?
Sure. Okay, we can see your screen.
Okay, thanks. So as part of ONF test activities, we had, as everybody already know, that we have some sanity tests going on with BBSIM and some patch verification tests and some verification jobs. And apart from that, we also have the tests that are now running as part of the physical pod. So right now, whatever tests that we started with the physical pod are the very basic sanity tests, like the create device, enable device, authentication, DHCP, like a sanity test that we do as part of the Voltha Go sanity system test job. So here on this screen right here, Voltha test view on Jenkins OpenCod, we have these two jobs which are here, and these are the jobs that are built on a pod, and we have a pod that is available at Flex, which is ONF's pod. So this particular job, what it does is it is building it installs all the released Helm charts and then uses kind Volta and then builds the pod, and it has various stages, as you can see here. So we clean up the pod, we install it, and whatever configurations that are required as part of the pod, we push them. And as part of the job, we also do a reinstall of OLT and restart the process. And our pod has a switch, so we also have a switch configuration. So it does until the point where we can start using the system. Once this pod is being built, then another job gets triggered, which is the test job. So this gets kicked off right after a successful build. And these are the sanity tests that are run on the physical pod. So we have the framework already written as part of the Volta system test repo, and the tests are using that repo, and also some of the framework as part of Core Tester as well, which is as part of SIBA, and we created this test. So as you can see, we have a good indication of past results on the physical test, and it's very stable. And now from now on, so we can take this framework and start enhancing it, and then take more test stories as part of this brigade, and then developing the test cases on as part of it. So the purpose of this job is also to build nightly. These are the integration tests that we want to run on the pods. So yeah, there are quite a number of tasks and stories that are still unassigned, and I will be reaching out to the brigade members in the test automation as part of Saro's email about the assignments of each test brigade, and start get things going on so that we can get some good test automation test cases going here. So that's all for the update. Any questions, anybody?
Yeah, this is great stuff. Saurav did post a message the other day that the test cases for had been, gone through 10 or so iterations, which is spectacular. Looking into this, I see that robot test is using some of the same low-level function calls or functions, library calls, as the BBSIM test case. Is there a planned effort to kind of unify it so there's this one robot sanity test case that works both for the physical pod and the BBSIM based test, so that and if so, is there a timeline for that unification?
Yeah, we can certainly do that. Yeah, there is some work that also needs to be done as part of BBSIM existing test cases if we want to use exactly same test case to be run. We haven't put a timeline yet, but definitely we can discuss in the next test automation brigade, and then based on the priorities, we can take up which one we want these things to go first.
Okay.
And yeah, definitely, because we are using exactly similar functions as part of from the test framework, so they could be achieved. I would say that not everything 100% of whatever runs on physical would be available on BBSIM, but yes, but basically if we can lay out things on BBSIM in the way how the physical pod also works, and definitely they could be reused.
Okay. Yeah, I guess in my mind, I was thinking kind of one script that runs either physical or BBSIM with tags, so you could, like, when you're running on a physical pod, or enable certain features like send traffic, deal with the switch, versus when you're running in the BBSIM pod, those would not be, you wouldn't run with those tags, and that would not be executed. That type of thing. Is that kind of where you're going with this?
Yes, and also one more thing is, if you want to start in that direction, I would first recommend that we would just create the sanity test that we are running right now. We could just start with that first, and then have the same kind of tag concept where skip some of the tests as part of robot, and then run the test cases. So have these with the sanity test first, and then see how the implementation, and then see how it goes.
Yeah, I think it would be important to unify the test cases soon, so the same suite runs on BBSIM and the hardware, because the longer we wait, the more difference we'll have between the two, and the harder will be to unify them. And also, if you notice any difference between the physical pod and BBSIM, please let me know, because that shouldn't be the case.
Okay. Yeah, we can discuss more in the test automation brigade. Definitely can bring it up and then discuss in detail. Yeah, and I agree that we should do it as soon as possible before the test suites are built up, more mature. Any other questions? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and take presentation rights back. Okay, so the next item, we've got about 20 minutes left. So we started last Thursday on a discussion of a proposal that Mahir had put on Voltha.Discuss. And so we want to pick up and continue that discussion. Also covered in that email is a reference to Vol 1975. So let me go ahead and go over to the email. So we've started talking about item number 1, I think, last Thursday. Mahir, let me go ahead. I think I saw you on the bridge.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
So
go ahead.
For a recap, I mean, we first started to talk on first item, as you said, and it was about the response of the GetDevice message, and we talked that the response of this GetDevice message is the device structure itself, and it's a relatively huge structure. But in fact, the adapters need only a few parameters in this device structure, so it's better to minimize this response to the GetDevice message. And we talked that we can do this in a few ways. First, we can define a new structure in Proto, and it may include only the desired parameters in it, and we can send this as a response of GetDevice message. And secondly, we can not change we will not go to change the GetDevice message and it is a response. We can introduce a new message like, I don't know, get minimal device info something, and define a response for it, and changed all GetDevice request with that. I think that was all we talked last time. So we can continue on this point if there is any comments about that.
Do we know today how often an adapter invoke GetDevice?
How often? I think in OLT adapter, during the bring up scenario, only bring up scenario, there probably maybe 2 or 3 times it queries the GetDevice 2 or 3 times, I think. In ONO adapter, it queries more than that. I think it's probably queries between 5 and 10 times.
Okay. Do we know? Go ahead.
The second item of the mail is also about relative to this item. So it goes to decrease the number of GetDevices towards the core from the ONO adapter. So if we also do the things in the second item, then we will decrease the number of GetDevices towards the core.
Okay. Do we also know what are the? I think we talked about it a little bit last time. Do we know the set of messages that we absolutely need every time for a GetDevice? Is there something in the GetDevice that an adapter absolutely needs, especially in the case of ONU?
Do you mean the parameters needed, or?
No, which part of the device information that it needs? Because there's a lot of information in the device that doesn't change. So which part of it that it's really absolutely need to get?
It is generally the statuses are needed. In OLT adapter, there is another implementation about informing the alarms, and it goes to core to get the serial number of the device. But I think we can change it to cache the serial number on device handler, and we will not need to go to core for serial number. Then it remains only the statuses to be queried, I think.
Okay, maybe we can start with adding a new API to get status, and if there's anything else that we need to add, maybe it's time to do so.
Yeah, I think port state, device and port state. Usually, a lot of times when the ONU is coming up, or there's any changes to port stats, it's doing a lot of checking of the device and the port itself. Also, the reason is kind of how we promote up the state of OMCI. So it sets reason a lot. I don't think it reads reason a lot, but it sets a lot. Usually before it sets anything, it does a get. So ports, serial number, and reason are probably the big users.
Yes.
Do we need to think about an eventing mechanism to keep things in sync versus using APIs, gets and sets on APIs to keep things in sync?
Is there the request, for example, for port status? Is it something that the OLT needs from the ONU or vice versa?
Usually, it's the ONU setting the port states. There's a lot of setting of port states down, setting of port states up, depending on what OMCI is telling it or what the OLT has told it.
Because
usually it follows. Go get the device, change the port state, set the device.
Okay. To David's point, if there is a dependency, for example, one of the adapters needs status of the device from the other adapter, then if the core is getting those information, then it's easy for those kind of we can have callback mechanism where, for example, an adapter saying like the status have changed for this device, and then we can, for example, if it's an ONU device change has happened, we could turn around and trigger an event being sent to the OLT adapter to say that the port has changed instead of the OLT adapter to make that query. I don't know if that's a valid use case from an adapter perspective.
Maybe not. I don't know. It's usually the uniports. I mean, so from the point of view of the OLT, it may, we'd have to look through it again, just to be sure. But I think from the OLT's point of view, it is more about gathering indications for the ONU or its PON or NNI ports. And then at that point, the OLT adapter is done, and it's the ONU adapter as what it reads from OMCI to set the uniports. So there is a little bit of overlap, but typically the PON and NNI ports don't change status a whole lot, whereas uniports can change status quite a bit.
In that sense, will it make sense for if there's a uniport change for the adapter to know about it instead of polling for that information?
I don't know about between adapters. I don't know if between the two adapters, if it's so much of an issue, if it's more of just the ONU and the core itself having to do a whole lot of talking to drive or be a side effect of OMCI.
I think the adapters doesn't talk to each other on this manner. I mean, they go to core to query something generally.
Because once the OLT is up, it gets the ONU indication. ONU is up. After that's all finished, the OLT itself won't work any port or status changes for the ONU or the OLT. At that point, it's just OMCI indications directly to the ONU adapter. The OLT adapter at that point is just a blind pass-through, and the ONU itself is working its own device states independent of the OLT adapter. So there's an initial handful or initial couple maybe to get it going, but then afterwards it's all in the ONU.
Okay, if it's all in the ONU adapter.
Right. Well, this is my question: is do we really need kind of a fetch and watch command, which basically says, grab me the current state when I start up, and then also start initiating an event stream so I get updates to that state, rather than have to query every time I want the state. And that could go from the ONU adapter to the core, because it doesn't really matter the destination, or through the OLT adapter.
My other question is, like, if the ONU adapter is the one that is changing those states, means it should always have the states, right? Like, why would it query the core all the time if it's already know the state?
I think it's more of a, do we call a set on stale or cache device data, or do we go get the device, set it? What's the safe way to update the device if, let's say, we've carried around a copy of a device for a few calls already? I mean, ultimately, the goal is the set. The set is the goal. The get is really just say, hey, am I working with a good copy or not?
Right, but usually when you're doing that, what you do is you do a set with a token that says, here's what I think the data is, it's hash, if you will, and here's what I want to set it to. And the system that you're setting says, oh, if the hash matches, then yeah, you had an up-to-date copy, and I'll do the set. The hash doesn't match, I'll throw you an error back, right? And so there's ways to, in a single call, so you don't have to do this with a fetch then a set. Because the minute you do a fetch and a set, you still have the same problem. You're narrowing the window. Where if you're really trying to eliminate the window, you want to say, here's the code for what I have, the hash for what I have. Here's the value I want to set. Either set it if the hash matches, or give me an error if it doesn't.
The only exception to that, David, it's having a unique API that is going to set the actual values directly. Then we don't need a hash for that, because they're ONU saying this is the state. That's it. Set it.
But I think
if it's saying I know the state and I'm the master of the state, they're absolutely setting it. But if they're trying to do only set it if I have the current value, then you use a hash.
But they almost never, they don't ever really do that. It's always just set the value.
Some of it may be the admin state. I think there's check admin state, and then, based on admin state, now we can look at port state.
Yeah, a few things.
But yeah,
I
I
think an event coming down to track admin state might be more efficient than having to query it each time. It doesn't change that much.
So some of this may get back to the sequencing of device and port from Ken's earlier document as well, because we've kind of had to smooth things over depending on how different how the ONU works versus maybe how it was originally, the state machine was originally designed.
Yeah, that's right. Like with the way the state machine is done in the core, we could easily add routines to push out events on changes. So that's not a change of the question. It will need to do.
I think mostly the reason that the adapters query the status, they want to check the current status and take a decision according to that. In ONU adapter, if anything in ONU site happens, any message comes from VOLTHA adapter or on-site to an ONU adapter, which will have an effect on the status of an ONU, then because ONU adapter doesn't keep the status on it, it has to query the status and check the current status and decide to change the status according to the current one. So we don't have the data on the statuses also on the ONU adapters. So we have to query. And this, I think this makes sense in such cases. But if there are some other cases that we will query only the statuses and don't use them, then we can clean these cases in the code when going through the code.
This could be a case where we actually go and add a new API and see the impact, if it helps at all. Because yes,
we can add new API and see that if the current API is needed anywhere else, and we can change the API, the GetDevice queries is one by the new one, and you can see that if there is any need also to the GetDevice, whole GetDevice itself.
Yeah, but I think there's a question: is the time that's the problem really the size of the data on the RPC, or the fact you're making an RPC call? Which is the bottleneck?
Sorry, David, I missed some of your some.
Yep. Yeah. The issue is sorry. The issue is the problem we're seeing in performance because of the amount of data that's coming over the RPC, or the fact that you're making an RPC call, right? That I think still needs to be determined. And again, if we make a specialized RPC, just as an example, for trial, we can say, look, we'll do try a RPC that only gets the values that we need, and then try that and do the performance test on that. And it might be that the issue is the fact we're making too many RPCs, and we're going to have a performance hit regardless of the amount of data in that RPC.
Yeah, I think the underlying problem is having lots of messages, and the core is not able to scale to that number of messages. Right now, we are not able to go over 200 or 300 ONUs at a time. So having a new API probably will not decrease the number of messages, and we will continue to see the scalability problem.
But are we sure that the scalability problem is because of the number of messages going over Kafka?
I believe so. I'm not so sure.
Okay. That would be good to know. Definitely, we know for sure there is too many messages going across between the adapters and the core. That if we can decrease that, we should. If we can decrease the size of that, I think we should.
Yeah.
But it will be also good to know from a performance perspective if that's really possible.
I think another aspect of that as well, inter-adapter messaging for OMCI is, I mean, it's like about, I don't know, like 1,000 messages, 500 messages in the course of, 20 seconds for each one ONU.
Yeah.
So getting the initial OMCI burst off of the ONU adapter, Kafka, ONU adapter, I don't know if the core is involved, I can't remember. And then
It's not.
OLT adapter might also help some of the bottleneck there as well.
Yeah, that's correct. Like it's I would think there's more messages between the OLT and ONUs than between the adapters and the core.
Right. I mean, I think we've talked about doing that anyway, and I mean that might be a first good pass, at least just to see how much pressure it takes off Kafka if Kafka is the part that's suffering here.
But in any case, I think if we solve these problems and then look at it, it's better. I mean, if we know that there are some messages going through the Kafka that they are not necessary, and we could first clean that and then check the performance of the Kafka. Or, I mean, not to give the effort twice.
Yeah, for sure.
It sounds like we need to reevaluate the patterns. It sounds like we need to reevaluate the message patterns. If we're sending this many messages to bring up one ONU, that's problematic.
Well, some of it's just the nature of OMCI. OMCI on startup is, I mean, it's about a 500 message, ONU MIB upload, setting MIBs.
Just the MIB upload alone is 293 messages.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that's on a minimal ONU. Some of the bigger ONUs with more priority queues, it takes more. So getting that OMCI out of that path would be a big benefit.
What are these messages? Are they just data transfer, the upload, or are they actual control messages?
Control messages. This is when the ONU first comes up via OMCI, it sends out a reset saying, first of all, whatever the ONU you know about, forget about. Second of all, it says, tell me everything about yourself. This includes the number of uniports, the number of TCONs, the number of priority queues, schedulers, any and all capabilities ultimately needed for later provisioning the service. This message exchange can take, even just with in-memory MIB, 10 to 15, 20 seconds and consist of, anywhere from 200 to 300 messages.
Wow, that's not efficient. All right, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, we do have a Jira to move those messages over gRPC, but it's not planned yet.
Can moving them gRPC from ONU adapter to OLT adapter, or directly from ONU adapter to the OLT device?
No, it's more between the adapters itself. Instead of having container messages between the adapters, it's to have adapters talk directly to each other over gRPC streaming, instead of sending those messages over Kafka, because there's too much with the problem with it's not a problem with Kafka itself. It's just like, because we are sending protobuf messages over Kafka, so first we have to encode it, marshal it, put it on Kafka. On the other end, they need to take it and marshalling it into protobuf and consuming it. But if we have direct gRPC streaming between those adapters, then for sure the marshalling we don't need to do that, and those messages is much faster than going over Kafka. So at least that will remove a little bit of the block with what we are seeing today.
Sorry, Senator, wouldn't the marshal and unmarshal happen anyway, even if we send them over gRPC? Because someone has to encode and decode those data.
Over gRPC, we are just going to send the protobuf message itself, as is.
But
yeah, and the OLT wouldn't have to really do anything with it other than basically take the OMCI payload and then send it on to the agent. So really, OLT after at that point just becomes an OMCI proxy purely from a gRPC to gRPC back-to-back point of view.
Yeah.
So you mean gRPC does it make it itself? I mean, I think some kind of serialization should be done. If it is not done by adapters, then it should be done by gRPC library.
It's really like in terms of serialization that you're talking, Mahir is correct. But what it does, it's pretty much taking the protobuf message and put that in bytes and send it as is. So reconstructing those messages, it's there's almost no cost to that compared to what we are doing today over Kafka, where we actually have to encode that message into a different protobuf, send it out, and then take it from the other side and marshalling into its own protobuf. There's much more processing we're doing over Kafka than we'll have to do with direct gRPC streaming.
I see.
And we are slightly over time today, so we'll need to wrap up. Sirkat, it looks like you have another comment. Sorry.
Yeah, the last one. Do we have some unit tests or using a simulated OLT and ONU? Can we have scalability tests so that we don't have to deal with the Kafka issues for the scalability tests?
For scalability, like you still need Kafka in the sense of with simulated OLT or ONUs, right? They are also in containers. They still communicate with the core of Kafka.
Okay, I see.
And they don't do, like, you can use them for scalability to try the core itself, because they do basic device activation, things like that. They are not as involved as BBC and OpenOLT.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
so I think we don't have any decision on the item yet.
No.
Should we take any action or for the next meeting, or should we take? I mean, look something else, or?
Maybe we can have an offline meeting. Another meeting.
Yeah, we could set up a separate meeting. We'll probably discuss over to discuss options, or I can take a list of people who want to be included and then work and try and find a time slot. Would that be best?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, why don't we do that, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up today's call, and I'll see if we can get a time slot set up maybe for 1 hour, do you think? How much time do we need for the side meeting?
I think when I think on these three items, 1 hour may not be enough, because we already talked about 1 hour.
Yeah. Okay.
And we didn't get anything for the first item yet.
Okay,
so it may be better to arrange it to 1.5 hours.
Okay. Let me see what I can find for an open time slot, and we'll get something on the calendar.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. And we'll go ahead and close up the bridge today. And sorry we ran over a little bit, and we'll talk again on Thursday. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.